I'd like to talk a bit about the rules of art and as they exist as a body of knowledge and how people conceive of that that group of rules and what they expect from it and how they use it and misuse it. Um, so I'll say something that is controversial right from the start to see if anyone's listening, and that is there's no such thing as composition. Um, there are rules, but the set of rules are very incomplete at this stage. If you attempt to look at all manner of successful art over all cultures and all periods in history, I don't. You'd be very hard pressed to find any rule that applies to them all. Or put another way, name any rule of composition that you may care, and I can find successful art that breaks it. So where does that leave our rules? Well, it could mean that the rules are really a primitive look, like Plato's cave, a shadowy reflection of objective truth that is out there. Um, but they are, we are at the very beginning of understanding physiologically and mentally and culturally how artwork works and how it moves us. So as an academic enterprise, people can spend their lives as art professors trying to figure out the basis of art and what rules underlie all kinds of different art. But how does that affect the practicing artist, or particularly an illustrator or a concept artist? I think there's a lot of danger there. For instance, Edgar Payne's composition book, Painting Landscapes. Um, there's a lot of rules in there that if you follow them, you will create competent artwork in a particular genre of art. But I think that people look at these things that they've been taught in art school or in various books, and they look at them a bit too um, as too much of absolute truth. Say, for instance, the rule, do not put the horizon line of a landscape painting directly down the middle of the canvas. Well, I can find reams of work that is famous and has survived the test of the ages and is wonderful examples of art where it's right down the middle. So does that mean that artwork is inferior or degenerate? No. It means that that rule um, is incomplete. It isn't getting at the real basis of why artwork works. So if that idea is floating around inside of an illustrator's head, it is ultimately limiting. Um, you as a creative artist, you have in your mind, in the genetic code that is you, um, everything that you need to know, all of what is right and what is wrong. And doing that intuitively as opposed to following a set of rules, I think you'll end up making better artwork. Now, it could be that the artwork that you do nobody else likes because you're a very strange individual. That's certainly possible. And sometimes if you look at highly individualistic artists throughout the ages, a lot of them have been forgotten. You don't even know who they are, but some of them have uh, gained admirers later on, the ones who broke rules and were people who were kicked out of academies because they broke rules. That doesn't mean that, oh, because I'm going to ignore all the rules, I will automatically create wildly original and great artwork, well, that doesn't really follow either. But I would say that probably the best guide is to do what you like. And you might think this is a blessing to do whatever you want. It is, but the caveat I put on that is to be absolutely ruthless on yourself as far as how you evaluate what you've done. Because it might sound like it's an excuse to simply do what you do, and it's great because, hey man, I felt it. That's all fine and wonderful, but I don't think you're going to really get anywhere that way. You need to do it, evaluate it, and evaluate it ruthlessly. Accept nobody else's opinion as to what is good or bad. But you should be as hard on yourself as anybody else. And, it does tie back into what I was talking about as far as having an experimental time in your work time that is set to fail. I think it's very, very important. Now, some people say that you need to know the rules before you can break them. And that's probably a very good idea. If you look at, say, for instance, the musician Vangelis, he's worked very productively over a long period of time, makes music that a lot of people like. He never learned how to notate music in a traditional way. And I wonder if he had been forced to do that, or if he had knuckled under and learned an academic process for creating music, how his work would be very, very different. I think when you learn rules, you have to be very careful about what you let into your head, because it gets in there and at a subconscious level affects everything that you do. Say, for instance, when I was in school, I was trained as an industrial designer at first, and that was my basic instruction in drawing. And eventually I moved into illustration, and people from 50 miles away knew, oh, you're one of those ID guys. And it took years to get that feeling out of my artwork. And it was very frustrating. So if you have these rules in your head, they can be very, very damaging. Maybe you need to listen to rules as they exist, but with only one ear open. You need to develop the ability to forget about the rules when needed. Now that's quite a trick, to be able to turn off a habit, because it does become a habit as you work over and over. You develop certain ways of working that are perhaps based on these rules that are incomplete reflections of what your art could potentially be, and how to turn those rules off. And that is, again, that's what I'm talking about, and having a definite scheduled time in which to fail, in which to reboot your brain time and time again, and work things up from the very beginning, and question every assumption that you make, and try to be as clear as you can about the assumptions that you are unconsciously making about art. So in summation, I would say do what you like, and what if the world says it sucks? Well, it might, it probably does, but if you find value in it, and you have been very strict in your own evaluations, you're probably onto something.